Hello everybody, Chris here, working on Java tutorial number 2, Object Orientation. Today's IDE that I'm going to be using is Eclipse, but you can feel free to use JGrasp, NetBeans, and Textimate. JGrasp is great for learning, NetBeans is good for UI development, and Textimate is kind of a Mac thing, and it costs a little bit of money, but it's fantastic. So, building objects. Building objects requires a class. A class is like a blueprint in a factory. You tell all of the specifications that you need in this particular object, and then you just run it through a machine and it does as many as you need. So a constructor, there's three things a class require: constructors, fields, and methods. Constructors are used to initialize any variables and to run any methods that we need to run to initialize stuff. Fields hold data, like integers and strings and stuff, and methods are what the object does, what needs to happen with this object, or what we need to see from this object. Dice. I love using dice because dice are objects that you can actually pick up and feel. So there's three questions that we need to ask. What do dice have? What do dice do? And what can you do to dice? Well, what do dice have? Dice have sides, and dice have a certain number of sides. So sides are what we use dice for. We need to see what side it is up so that we can, I don't know, use dice. And number of sides can vary. You can have 6-sided dice or 20-sided dice. What can you do with dice? You can roll a dice. And what can you do to dice? Well, you can view which side is up. So in order to start, we got to declare a class. We're going to declare this class dice, and we're going to create our constructor, public dice. And now we're going to take a break from that and go ahead and create our variables because that's kind of important. So we're going to go private int sides, or side, I think, and then private int num side, the two variables that we discussed in that slide. Ooh, lots of S's. Slide, side, num side. All right, in this particular constructor, we're going to use a parameter called ns, which stands for num slide, and then we're going to set num slide equal to ns. Kind of a simple way to do things. This I'll explain in a minute. So next things, we're going to create a method. This particular method is called the roll method, and it doesn't have any return type. We're just going to set the side equal to a random number. And so really what a dice is, when you roll a dice, it's a random number facing up. Random, in quotes, obviously. So we're going to set our side equal to integer, and then math.random. Now math.random is kind of something that Java just gives us. It returns a number between 0 and 1. It's a floating point number, so it is completely random. But what we need to do is we need to cast it. So that's why I had those two, that int in parentheses up at the front. Then I'm going to multiply it by 1,000, which I figure is enough to be in the middle of the num side. And I mean, I hope nobody decides to create 1,000-sided dice, but I guess it is possible, so maybe I should change that. And then we just modulo it by the number of sides. We could potentially have, and then we add 1 to it to kind of, finish it off. Make sure it's between 1 and the number of sides that we set. And then we kind of just run that in the constructor. Next, we're going to do the getter function, which I will explain in a future video or tutorial. This particular getter function is getSide, and I guess you probably can guess what is going to happen with it. We're going to return side. It's going to give us the side back, whatever we call it. All right, next I'm doing something that should be done on every class. I'm creating a default constructor. The default constructor gives the most likely object parameters just without any parameter list. So a normal dice that you would find is a 6-sided dice. At least that's what I think. Now, some of you who play different games might think, oh, a 20-sided dice is one that might find. any given day. But this particular class, I think that the most uh, likely number of sides that could be, I don't know, is a six-sided dice. So then we're going to do the this.roll function, make sure that we initialize that side variable, and then we're going to go ahead and test our class, make sure that it works. So in order to test our class, we need to do a test class, which is a public class dice test. Now inside our test class, we have to actually create a run function, or as you guys may know, a public static void main function. Now some people might argue that main is not in every particular Java file or Java executable, but I disagree. I think that every Java application that you create has a main function or main method running or in really down deep in there. So we're going to create our dice object as a dice, d equals new dice with 0 parameters in our parameter list, which means that we're going to be running our default dice constructor. Then we're just going to go ahead and do d.roll just for the heck of it, even though we ran that in our dice constructor. And we're going to go ahead and system.out.println, which prints to the console the get side function of our dice. Then we're going to create another dice. This is D1 because I can't think of any more interesting name. And we're going to set the dice or the num side parameter, if you remember correctly, and it's going to be 20, just because that's the next dice that I think of for some reason. We're going to run the roll function just because we want to do it again, and we're going to system.out that as well. And because I am lame, I don't copy and paste. But I highly recommend copying and pasting because programmers are inherently lazy and I am lazy. I would definitely copy and paste the next time. Just saying. Alright, we're going to give this a run, and boom. We've got our dice, and they're giving us different numbers every run that we do. Hopefully, I'm fairly certain, yes, we are getting different numbers every run that we do. So, that being said, goodbye, you guys. I hope that you had fun learning this, and happy Java-ing.